stop. Right now, at this exact moment, something inside your head is sabotaging everything you're trying to build. It's not your boss, not your circumstances, not your past. It's the invisible architecture of your own mind, running programs you never agreed to install, making decisions you think are yours, but aren't. And here's what nobody tells you. Every single day you wait to understand this, those programs get stronger, deeper, more permanent. By the end of this message, you're going to see exactly how your brain has been working against you, and more importantly, how to finally make it work for you. This isn't theory. This isn't motivation. This is the operating manual you were never given for the most powerful tool you'll ever own, your mind. Chapter 1, The Silent Saboteur, Living Inside Your Skull. Let me ask you something honest. When was the last time you made a decision that felt completely, genuinely yours? Not influenced by habit, not driven by emotion, not pulled by some invisible force you couldn't quite name. If you're struggling to answer that question, you're not alone, and you're not weak. You're just finally noticing something that's been happening your entire life. Your mind is running like a city that never sleeps. Right now, as you're reading these words, there are thousands of automated processes firing beneath your awareness, thoughts appearing without permission, emotions rising without invitation, actions unfolding without conscious choice. And the uncomfortable truth, most of these processes are steering you toward a life you don't actually want. Think of your consciousness like a captain on a massive ship. You're standing at the wheel, giving orders, making decisions, feeling like you're in control. But beneath the deck, in the engine room you never visit, there's a crew running on outdated instructions. They're following maps drawn by your childhood fears, routes carved by past failures, protocols written by people who wanted to keep you safe, not successful. And that crew, they're running 96% of your daily operations. This isn't some abstract psychology concept. This is your reality. The reason you grab your phone the moment you wake up, the reason you choose the comfortable path over the challenging one, the reason you sabotage yourself right when momentum builds, none of that is actually you making conscious choices. It's your subconscious running its default programming. Here's where it gets interesting and, honestly, a bit unsettling. Your brain evolved in a world where survival meant avoiding danger at all costs. Anything unfamiliar was potentially deadly. Staying with the tribe meant safety. Standing out meant risk. So your brain developed what we call a negativity bias, a hardwired tendency to scan for threats, problems, and reasons why something might go wrong. This served your ancestors beautifully. When a rustling bush could mean a predator, being paranoid kept you alive. But in today's world, that same programming is destroying your potential. Your brain is still scanning for threats, except now the threats it identifies are opportunities for growth, challenges that could expand you, changes that could transform your life. Every weak pattern you carry isn't a character defect. It's a neural superhighway that's been paved through repetition until it became automatic. When you reach for distraction instead of doing deep work, when you choose immediate comfort over long-term gain, when you promise yourself tomorrow for the 100th time, you're not being lazy or undisciplined. You're being controlled by pathways carved so deep into your brain that they fire before your conscious mind even gets a vote. I've seen this play out in thousands of lives. The entrepreneur who can't stop checking analytics every 10 minutes, ensuring they never actually build anything meaningful. The artist who reorganizes their workspace instead of creating, because the fear of making bad art is coded deeper than the desire to make any art. The person who knows exactly what they need to do to change their life has known for years, but somehow keeps finding themselves right back where they started. And here's the pattern. They all blame themselves. They think they lack discipline. They believe they're fundamentally flawed. They conclude that success is for other people who have some magical quality they lack. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is they're trying to fight a neurological battle with willpower and motivation, two of the weakest weapons you could possibly choose. The most successful people I've studied don't have superhuman willpower. They don't wake up every morning flooded with motivation. They've simply learned something crucial. You cannot change your life without changing your mind, not your thoughts, not your attitude, your actual neural architecture. They understand that lasting transformation happens at the level of brain structure, not conscious intention. They've learned to work with their neurology instead of against it. They've discovered how to reprogram the subconscious rather than exhaust themselves trying to overpower it with conscious effort. But here's what breaks my heart. Most people go through their entire lives never realizing they're being controlled by invisible forces. They accept their patterns as just who I am. They mistake their programming for their personality. They resign themselves to mediocrity because nobody ever told them that their mental architecture is editable, that their neural pathways are rewritable, that their subconscious can be reprogrammed. The first step to freedom is recognizing this fundamental truth. You are not your automatic patterns. You are not your habitual thoughts. You are not your conditioned responses. You are the awareness that observes all of these things. And as that awareness, you have access to something extraordinary, the ability to rewrite the code. Chapter 2. Why everything you've tried has failed you. Let me guess your history with habit change. You identified something you wanted to stop doing. You committed to stopping. You white-knuckled it for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. Then life got stressful, or you got tired, or you just hit a moment of weakness, and suddenly you were right back where you started. And then came the worst part, the conclusion that you just don't have what it takes. Sound familiar? If so, I need you to hear this. The failure wasn't yours. The strategy was broken from the start. The entire habit change industry has sold us a fundamentally flawed model. They've convinced us that changing habits is about changing behaviors. Do this instead of that. Stop this. Start that. Track it, measure it, repeat it until it sticks. And while these surface-level strategies can create temporary changes, they're missing the entire foundation. Think about it like this. Imagine trying to change the direction a river flows by standing in the water and pushing against it. You might create a temporary ripple, a small deviation in the current, but the moment you stop pushing, the river returns to its natural course, carved by the landscape beneath it. That's what happens when you try to change behavior without changing the underlying neural landscape that created it. Here's what actually happens when you rely on willpower. Your willpower is like a battery that drains throughout the day. Every decision you make, what to wear, what to eat, whether to respond to that email, uses a small amount of charge. By evening, when your battery is depleted, your subconscious takes over completely. This is why people can be disciplined all day and then demolish a pint of ice cream at night. It's not weakness. It's predictable neuroscience. Most habit advice tells you to start small, be consistent, build slowly. And yes, consistency matters, but here's what they're not telling you. If you're only changing behaviors without addressing the beliefs, identities, and neural structures underneath, you're building a house on sand. The foundation isn't there. You can try to build a habit of waking up early. But if your subconscious identity is, I'm not a morning person, if your neural pathways associate early mornings with discomfort and struggle, your brain will sabotage every attempt. You might succeed for a week through sheer force, but eventually your deeper programming will win. Another critical mistake, trying to eliminate habits instead of replacing them. Here's a fundamental principle of neuroscience that changes everything. You cannot delete a neural pathway once it's formed. It's permanent brain architecture. The only way to overcome a weak habit is to build a stronger pathway that overrides it. This is why people who try to quit smoking by just stopping often fail. But those who replace smoking with another ritual, exercise, meditation, even chewing gum, have dramatically higher success rates. The brain needs a new route, not just a blocked road. I see this pattern constantly. Someone gets motivated and decides they're going to transform everything at once. Wake up earlier, exercise daily, eat perfectly, meditate, read more, build a business, eliminate all bad habits simultaneously. And what happens? Within 2 weeks, they're overwhelmed, depleted, and right back to square one. Your brain can only handle a certain amount of change at once. When you overload it, it defaults back to original programming as a protective mechanism. It's like trying to learn 5 languages simultaneously. You end up confused and fluent in none. But here's the biggest mistake, and this one's subtle. Fighting against your weak habits instead of understanding them. Every pattern you have, even the ones destroying your life, exists because it serves some function. Maybe scrolling social media provides temporary relief from anxiety. Maybe procrastination protects you from potential failure. Maybe overeating offers comfort when you're overwhelmed. Until you understand what need your weak habit is meeting and find a healthier way to meet that same need, you're going to be in an endless war with yourself. And in wars of self against self, everybody loses. Your brain wasn't designed to eliminate habits. It was designed to automate behaviors to conserve energy. This is actually brilliant for survival. Automating repetitive actions frees up conscious attention for threats and opportunities. But it means that trying to break habits through force is like trying to convince your lungs to stop breathing automatically. You're fighting against fundamental brain architecture. The solution isn't more discipline or stronger willpower. Those are emergency measures, not sustainable strategies. The solution is understanding how habits form at the neurological level and using that knowledge to work with your brain instead of against it. Chapter 3. The Neurological Prison. Your living in your brain is flying your life on autopilot, and most of that autopilot is programmed for mediocrity. To break free, you need to understand exactly how your brain creates and maintains these automated patterns that keep you trapped. Every habit begins as a neural pathway. Imagine walking through an untouched forest. The first time through, you're pushing through brush, navigating around trees, climbing over fallen logs. It's exhausting and slow, but walk that same route every day for a month, and something changes. A clear trail emerges. Vegetation gets trampled. The path becomes obvious. Eventually, you could walk it in the dark. Your brain works exactly the same way. Every time you repeat a behavior, checking your phone when bored, procrastinating on difficult tasks, choosing comfort over challenge, you're deepening that neural trail. And here's the part that should terrify you. Your brain doesn't differentiate between beneficial and destructive patterns. It simply automates whatever you repeat most frequently. If you've spent years reaching for your phone the moment you feel bored, you've carved a neural superhighway connecting boredom to phone checking. Your brain can now execute this sequence faster than you can consciously decide to do something different. The automation happens before awareness. But it gets worse. These neural pathways don't just control behaviors. They control thoughts and emotions too. When you've strengthened a particular pathway through repetition, it becomes your brain's preferred route for processing reality. Encounter a challenge, and your brain automatically fires the "this is too hard" pathway before you've even consciously assessed the situation. This is why changing habits feels impossibly difficult. You're not just fighting a behavior. You're fighting a deeply carved neural superhighway that your brain has been using for months or years. Your conscious mind might desperately want change, but your subconscious is still running the old program. And since your subconscious processes information 250,000 times faster than your conscious mind, it usually wins. There's a structure deep in your brain called the basal ganglia. Its job is to identify patterns and convert them into automatic routines to save energy. Once it locks in a pattern of trigger behavior reward, that sequence becomes largely unconscious. You stop actively choosing it. It just happens. This is why you can drive home without consciously thinking about every turn, why you can brush your teeth while planning your day, why you automatically reach for your phone without making a conscious decision to check it. Your basal ganglia has automated these sequences to free up conscious processing for other tasks. But here's the critical part most people miss. The basal ganglia doesn't just automate physical behaviors, it automates thought patterns and emotional responses too. If you've repeatedly responded to stress by feeling overwhelmed and helpless, your brain has automated that emotional response. If you've repeatedly told yourself, "I can't," when facing challenges, your brain has automated that thought pattern. Your brain reinforces these automated patterns through a process called myelination. Every time you use a neural pathway, your brain wraps it in a fatty substance called myelin, which makes signals travel faster and stronger. The more you use a pathway, the more myelinated it becomes, and the more automatic and effortless the behavior becomes. This is why breaking long-held habits gets harder over time. A habit you've had for 10 years has 10 years of myelination, making it lightning fast and effortless. A new habit has to compete with that established infrastructure. The really unsettling truth: most people are living their entire lives on autopilot without realizing it. They think they're making conscious choices, but they're actually just following the same neural programs on repeat. Wake up, feel stressed, procrastinate on important work, distract with entertainment, feel guilty, promise tomorrow will be different. Repeat. Your subconscious is processing 11 million pieces of information per second. Your conscious mind can handle about 40. This means 99.9% of your mental processing happens below conscious awareness, making decisions, filtering reality, directing behavior based on programs installed years ago. This is why you can desperately want to change a habit while simultaneously finding yourself doing the exact opposite behavior. Your conscious mind is like a person with a megaphone trying to shout directions to a massive crowd. The crowd is your subconscious, and it's not listening to your megaphone, it's following the paths it already knows. But here's the hope. Neuroplasticity means your brain can form new pathways at any age. Your neural architecture isn't fixed, but, and this is crucial, creating new pathways isn't enough. You have to make them stronger than the old ones. This requires a strategic approach that goes far beyond just repeating new behaviors. You need to understand how to accelerate new pathway formation while simultaneously weakening old ones. You need to know how to leverage your brain's natural plasticity instead of fighting against its natural resistance to change. Chapter 4. The 3 Toxic Myths Keeping You Trapped. There are 3 lies that have been told to you about habits by society, by the self-help industry, by well-meaning people in your life. These aren't just innocent mistakes. They're actively destroying your ability to create lasting change. As long as you believe these lies, you'll remain stuck in cycles of temporary progress, followed by inevitable collapse. The first toxic myth, willpower, is the answer. This myth has convinced millions of people that they're fundamentally broken when they can't maintain new habits. If only I had more discipline, if only I were stronger, if only I weren't so lazy. But here's the truth. Willpower is a terrible long-term strategy because it's a depleting resource. Think of willpower like your phone battery. You wake up at 100%. Every decision throughout your day, should I respond to this message now or later? Should I have the salad or the burger? Should I work on this difficult task or do something easier? Drains a small percentage. By 8 p.m., when you're running on 5%, your old habits take over because they require 0 battery power. They're automated. Successful people don't have some supernatural willpower reserve. They have better systems. They've learned to automate their beneficial behaviors so they don't have to consciously decide to do the right thing every single time. They've designed their environments so good choices become obvious and bad choices become difficult. I learned this the hard way. I used to think discipline meant forcing myself through discomfort every single day. I'd wake up early through sheer determination, exercise through exhaustion, work through resistance, and I'd feel proud of my mental toughness until I burned out so completely I could barely get out of bed for a week. What I learned changed everything. Willpower is an emergency protocol, not an operating system. It's useful for acute challenges, but it's unsustainable for daily life. The goal isn't building more willpower. The goal is building systems that make willpower unnecessary. The second toxic myth, just stop the bad habit. This myth ignores a fundamental reality of neuroscience. Neural pathways, once formed, never fully disappear. They can become dormant, quiet, less active, but they remain in your brain's architecture, waiting to reactivate when triggered. This is why people can break a habit for months, even years, and then suddenly find themselves right back in old patterns. The pathway never died. It was just sleeping. And when stress hit, when life got chaotic, when willpower depleted, that old pathway reactivated because it was still the strongest root. The only way to overcome a destructive habit is to replace it with a constructive one that satisfies the same underlying need. If you try to eliminate without replacing, you create a void, and your brain will fill that void with something, often something worse than the original habit. This is why people who quit smoking often gain weight, why people who stop drinking sometimes become workaholics, why people who eliminate one distraction often find another. The underlying need, stress relief, boredom escape, emotional regulation, hasn't been addressed. Only the symptom changed. Every habit exists because it serves a function, even if that function is ultimately harmful. Procrastination might protect you from the sting of failure. Social media scrolling might provide the illusion of connection when you're lonely. Overeating might offer comfort when you're emotionally overwhelmed. Until you identify what function your destructive habit is serving and find a healthier way to meet that need, you're fighting an impossible battle. You're trying to remove a coping mechanism without providing an alternative. The third toxic myth: small changes are enough. The self-help industry loves to promote the idea that tiny adjustments lead to massive transformation. Just improve 1% each day. Atomic habits. Small hinges swing big doors. And yes, consistency matters. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Significant transformation requires significant intervention. If your current habits have been reinforced for years or decades, making tiny adjustments is like trying to redirect an avalanche by placing a small stone in its path. Real transformation happens when you create enough leverage to actually disrupt existing patterns. This doesn't mean being reckless or overwhelming yourself. It means making changes significant enough to break through your current programming. It means creating experiences different enough from your current reality that they force your brain to build new pathways. The start small advice can actually trap you in mediocrity, because small changes don't generate enough momentum to overcome the gravitational pull of existing habits. Small changes feel safe and comfortable, which is precisely why they don't work for deep transformation. Your brain only creates new neural pathways when it perceives that change is necessary, either for survival or for significant reward. Tiny, comfortable adjustments don't trigger that perception. Your brain sees them as optional variations, not necessary adaptations. These three myths have created a culture of people constantly trying and failing to change. They start with enthusiasm, make some progress, hit resistance from old programming, and then conclude they're broken. They blame themselves instead of recognizing they've been following broken strategies. The truth is this: changing habits isn't about being stronger or more disciplined. It's about being smarter. It's about understanding how behavior change actually works at the neurological level and using that knowledge to work with your brain instead of against it. Breaking free from these myths is your first step toward real transformation. Once you understand that willpower isn't the answer, that replacement beats elimination, and that significant change requires significant intervention, you can stop beating yourself up for past failures and start implementing strategies that actually work. Chapter 5. Becoming someone who doesn't have weak habits. Every habit you have is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. This is the insight that changes everything. The reason you have certain patterns isn't because you lack willpower or discipline. It's because those patterns are consistent with your identity. If you see yourself as someone who's disorganized, you'll unconsciously maintain habits that prove that belief. If you identify as someone who lacks self-control, you'll find yourself acting in ways that confirm it. Your habits aren't random behaviors. They're external expressions of your internal identity. This is why most people fail at long-term habit change. They try to change their actions without changing their self-concept. They want to exercise regularly while still seeing themselves as a naturally lazy person. They want to eat healthy while identifying as someone with no willpower around food. They want to be productive while believing they're a procrastinator by nature. Your brain is designed to keep your behaviors aligned with your identity. When your actions don't match who you think you are, you experience psychological tension, cognitive dissonance. And your brain will always resolve this tension by pulling you back toward behaviors that match your self-concept. This is why temporary motivation always fails. You can force behaviors that contradict your identity for a while, but eventually, your brain will snap you back to patterns that feel like you. The tension becomes too uncomfortable to maintain. But here's the revolutionary insight. Your identity isn't fixed. It's simply a collection of beliefs you hold about yourself. And beliefs can change. Think about it. Who you believe yourself to be right now is just a story you've been telling yourself repeatedly. I'm not a morning person. I'm not good with numbers. I'm just not disciplined. These aren't objective truths. They're narratives you reinforced through repetition until they feel true. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you're becoming. Every time you go to the gym, you're voting for the identity of being someone who values fitness. Every time you choose a nourishing meal, you're voting for the identity of someone who takes care of their body. Every time you do the difficult work instead of procrastinating, you're voting for the identity of being a person who follows through. The transformation happens when you accumulate enough votes that your brain accepts a new identity as true. This is identity-based change, and it's the most powerful approach to habit transformation that exists. Most people approach this backward. They focus on what they want to achieve instead of who they want to become. I want to lose 20 pounds instead of I want to become someone who honors their body. I want to read more books instead of I want to become someone who values continuous growth. When you focus on outcomes, you're setting yourself up for disappointment because outcomes are temporary. You can lose 20 pounds and gain them back. But when you focus on identity, the change becomes permanent because it's about who you are, not just what you do. I watched this transformation happen with someone I'll call Marcus. He'd been trying to quit smoking for 15 years. Tried patches, gum, willpower, everything, failed every time. Then he shifted his language. Instead of, I'm trying to quit smoking, he started saying, I'm not a smoker. That simple shift changed everything. Because now, when someone offered him a cigarette, he wasn't fighting temptation. He was simply being consistent with who he was. Non-smokers don't smoke. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was an identity. Identity-based change works because it aligns your conscious goals with your subconscious programming. When you truly see yourself as a disciplined person, discipline stops feeling like something you have to force. It becomes something you naturally do because it's who you are. The fastest way to shift your identity is through what I call evidence collection. Every day, you need to collect evidence that supports your desired identity. This means consciously choosing actions, no matter how small, that are consistent with who you want to become. Want to become someone who's organized? Make your bed every morning. That's one piece of evidence. Clear your desk at the end of each day. That's another piece. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence to confirm your beliefs about yourself. Start deliberately collecting evidence of your new identity. Keep a daily record, not of your failures, but of every action you take that's consistent with who you want to become. Celebrate these moments. Your brain will start noticing this evidence and gradually shifting your self-concept accordingly. The language you use matters enormously. Stop saying, "I'm trying to be more productive." Start saying, "I'm a productive person." Not, "I want to be healthier." Instead, "I'm someone who takes excellent care of my health." Your subconscious listens to the words you use and adjusts your behavior to match. This isn't fake it till you make it positive thinking. This is strategic identity construction based on accumulated evidence. Every small action builds the case. Every choice reinforces the identity. Over time, the new identity becomes more believable than the old one. When your identity changes, your habits change automatically. You don't have to force yourself to act differently because acting differently becomes natural. This is the difference between temporary behavior modification and permanent transformation. Chapter 6. Redesigning your world to redesign yourself. Your environment is programming your brain every single moment, and most people have no idea it's happening. While you're focused on building willpower and discipline, your surroundings are working against you, triggering weak patterns and making failure almost inevitable. Here's a truth that successful people understand, but average people completely miss. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your environment. Every object in your physical space is sending signals to your subconscious about who you are and what behaviors are normal for you. Every app on your phone, every item on your desk, every snack in your kitchen is either reinforcing your desired identity or undermining it. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for cues about how to behave. And these environmental triggers are exponentially more powerful than your conscious intentions. Think about it. If your phone is always visible on your desk, your brain strengthens the neural connection between sitting at desk and checking phone. If junk food is easily accessible in your kitchen, your brain reinforces the pathway between entering kitchen and eating junk food. Every environmental cue is training your brain whether you realize it or not. The people who successfully eliminate weak habits don't rely on willpower to resist temptation. They design their environment so temptation doesn't exist in the first place. They understand that every decision they have to make throughout the day depletes their mental energy, so they minimize decisions by making their environment do the heavy lifting. Environmental design works because it leverages your brain's natural tendency to automate behaviors. Instead of fighting that automation, you're working with it by ensuring the automated behaviors serve your goals. Let me give you a practical example. Sarah wanted to stop mindlessly scrolling social media before bed. She tried willpower, failed. She tried app blockers, worked around them. Then she redesigned her environment. Phone stays in the kitchen overnight. Charges there, never enters the bedroom. Book on nightstand instead. First few nights were uncomfortable. Her hand literally reached for where her phone used to be. But within 2 weeks, the new pattern automated. Bedroom became associated with reading and rest, not screen time. She didn't need willpower anymore. Her environment made the right choice automatic. The first step is conducting an environmental audit. Look at your bedroom, your workspace, your kitchen, your car, your phone. What behaviors are these spaces encouraging? What habits are they making easier? What temptations are they presenting? Most people's environments are designed for failure without them realizing it. Phone charging next to bed ensures scrolling is the first and last thing they do each day. Junk food visible in the kitchen makes unhealthy eating the path of least resistance. Workspace cluttered with distractions makes focus nearly impossible. The solution is reverse engineering your environment based on the identity you want to embody. If you want to become someone who reads regularly, make books visible and accessible while making TV and phone less prominent. If you want to become someone who exercises consistently, lay out workout clothes the night before and remove barriers to movement. Your phone deserves special attention because it's probably the most psychologically manipulative device in your environment. Tech companies have spent billions studying how to make their apps addictive. They use variable reward schedules, social validation, fear of missing out triggers, all designed to keep you checking constantly. The solution isn't relying on willpower to resist. The solution is strategically redesigning your phone environment. Remove social media apps entirely, or at minimum, bury them in hard-to-reach folders. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Use grayscale mode to make your phone visually less appealing. Create friction for distracting apps. Your workspace impacts your productivity enormously. A cluttered, chaotic workspace creates mental clutter and makes deep focus almost impossible. Your brain interprets visible clutter as unfinished tasks, creating background stress that reduces cognitive performance. A clean, organized workspace signals to your brain that you're someone who values focus and gets things done. It's not about aesthetics. It's about environmental programming. Even lighting, temperature, and sound levels affect your behavior patterns. Poor lighting causes fatigue and reduces motivation. Excessive noise increases stress hormones and impairs concentration. Uncomfortable temperatures drain mental energy and make you more likely to choose easy, comfortable behaviors. But the most powerful environmental factor is social. The people you surround yourself with have more influence on your habits than almost anything else. If you spend time with people who have weak patterns, those patterns will seem normal and acceptable to your brain. If you spend time with people who have strong habits, those habits become your new normal. Your environment is never neutral. It's either helping you become who you want to be or preventing you from becoming who you want to be. Every environmental cue is a vote for or against your desired identity. The people who achieve lasting transformation understand that changing their environment isn't optional, it's essential. They don't try to overpower their surroundings with willpower. They redesign their surroundings to make success inevitable. Chapter 7. Replacing Neural Highways with New Routes. Your weak habits exist as neural superhighways in your brain, and trying to eliminate them through willpower alone is like trying to stop a freight train by standing on the tracks. The only way to overcome a deeply ingrained pattern is to build a stronger neural pathway that overrides it. This isn't about suppressing or fighting your old habits. This is about strategically replacing them with new neural programs that serve your goals. Understanding this principle completely transforms how you approach habit change. Most people try to eliminate habits by simply stopping the behavior. But this leaves the underlying neural pathway intact, dormant, but ready to reactivate at the first sign of stress or weakness. Real habit change requires building new pathways that are stronger, more automatic, and more rewarding than the old ones. Every habit follows what neuroscientists call the habit loop: cue, routine, reward. The cue is the trigger. That starts the sequence. The routine is the behavior itself. The reward is what your brain gets from completing the cycle. Your brain automates this loop to conserve energy, which is why habits become unconscious over time. To replace a weak habit, you need to identify each component of this loop and systematically reprogram it. The cue is the environmental or internal trigger that initiates the habit sequence. This could be a specific time of day, a particular location, an emotional state, the presence of certain people, or an action that immediately precedes the habit. Your brain has learned to associate this cue with the routine that follows, creating an automatic trigger-response pattern. Identifying your habit cues requires honest observation. Most people are unconscious of their triggers, which is why weak habits feel like they just happen without warning. But every habit has a cue. Once you identify it, you can begin disrupting the automatic pattern. Start paying attention to what happens immediately before you engage in a weak habit. What were you thinking? How were you feeling? Where were you? What time was it? Who was nearby? Track this for a week, and patterns will emerge. The routine is the behavior itself, the visible part everyone focuses on. But the routine is just a symptom of a deeper neural program. Trying to change the routine without addressing the cue and reward is like trying to change a river's direction without changing the landscape that guides its flow. The reward is the most misunderstood component. The reward for checking social media might not be entertainment. It might be escape from discomfort or a hit of social validation. The reward for procrastinating might not be laziness. It might be protection from the fear of judgment or failure. Every weak habit provides some type of reward, even if that reward is ultimately harmful. Your brain doesn't evaluate whether rewards are good for long-term success. It simply seeks to repeat behaviors that provide immediate neurochemical satisfaction. Understanding what reward your weak habit provides is crucial for finding a healthier replacement. This is where most habit change attempts fail. People try to eliminate the reward instead of finding a better way to achieve it. Here's the breakthrough. The neural pathway replacement system works by keeping the same cue and reward while changing the routine. This leverages your brain's existing infrastructure while redirecting it toward beneficial behavior. Let me show you how this works in practice. David had a habit of eating junk food every afternoon around 3 p.m. The cue was the time and his energy dip. The routine was walking to the vending machine and buying chips. The reward wasn't actually hunger, it was a break from work and a momentary energy boost. Instead of trying to just stop eating junk food, David kept the same cue, 3 p.m. energy dip, and found a different routine that provided a similar reward. Taking a 10-minute walk outside. This gave him the break from work and the energy boost, but without the nutritional damage. First week was tough. His brain kept pulling him toward the vending machine because that pathway was stronger. But he committed to the walk instead. By week 3, the new pathway was competing with the old one. By week 6, the walk felt more natural than the chips. The new neural highway had been built. This approach works because you're not building entirely new pathways from scratch. You're modifying existing ones, which is much faster and more sustainable. Your brain already knows when to look for the reward. You're simply teaching it a new way to obtain it. Implementation requires systematic experimentation. You need to test different replacement routines to find one that provides a similar reward to your weak habit. This might take several attempts, and you need patience with the process. Your brain will naturally resist and try to revert to the familiar routine, especially during the first few weeks when the new pathway is still weak. This is normal. This is expected. This is not failure, it's neuroscience. The key to accelerating pathway replacement is increasing the reward value of your new routine. If your replacement habit provides a bigger or more satisfying reward than your weak habit, your brain will naturally prefer it over time. This might mean gamifying your new habit, tracking progress visibly, celebrating small wins, or linking it to a deeper sense of purpose and identity. The more rewarding the new routine, the faster the pathway strengthens. Repetition is crucial, but not all repetition is equal. Focused, intentional repetition is exponentially more effective than mindless repetition. Every time you consciously choose your new routine instead of your old one, especially during moments when you feel the urge for your weak habit, you're powerfully strengthening the new pathway. Research shows it takes an average of 66 days to form a new automatic habit, though this varies based on complexity and the strength of the existing pathway you're replacing. During this critical formation period, any return to the old habit weakens your new pathway and extends the automation timeline. Environmental modification dramatically accelerates pathway replacement. By changing the environmental cues that trigger weak habits, you reduce activation of old pathways while promoting activation of new ones. This is why building new habits in new environments is often easier than changing existing habits in familiar spaces. The ultimate goal is making your new habit more automatic than your old one. When this happens, you'll find yourself naturally choosing the beneficial behavior without conscious effort or decision-making. Your new neural pathway becomes the default route, and your weak habit fades into dormancy. Chapter 8. The Compound Effect of Small Destructions. While you're focused on the obvious big problems in your life, small, weak habits are silently compounding in the background, creating massive destruction you won't see until it's too late. Most people dramatically underestimate the long-term impact of daily choices because consequences aren't immediately visible. But compound effects work both ways. Just as small positive actions compound into extraordinary results, small negative actions compound into extraordinary failure. Here's what makes compound destruction so dangerous. It operates below the threshold of immediate consequence. Checking your phone once doesn't ruin your focus. Skipping one workout doesn't destroy your health. Procrastinating on one important task doesn't derail your career. But these seemingly harmless choices create neural patterns that become increasingly automatic and destructive over time. Each repetition deepens the groove, making the pattern easier to execute and harder to escape. Your brain doesn't evaluate long-term consequences of daily choices. It only responds to immediate feedback. This evolutionary programming worked brilliantly in ancestral environments where most consequences were immediate and obvious. But in today's world, the most important consequences are delayed and invisible, making your brain's short-term focus your biggest enemy. Consider the true cost of common weak habits over time. Spending just 30 minutes daily on mindless scrolling equals 182 hours per year, more than 4 full work weeks of lost time. Over a decade, that's nearly a full year of your life consumed by meaningless content. And that's just the time cost, not including the attention fragmentation, mood impacts, and cognitive deterioration that carry over into everything else you do. The procrastination habit compounds into far more than delayed tasks. Every time you procrastinate, you're training your brain that discomfort should be avoided rather than embraced. You're strengthening neural pathways associated with avoidance and weakness, while letting pathways for discipline and growth atrophy. Over time, this programming spreads beyond specific tasks to become a general approach to life where you consistently choose comfort over challenge. You become someone who runs from difficulty instead of someone who runs toward growth. Weak habits compound because they reinforce limiting beliefs about yourself. Every time you give in to a weak habit, you're providing evidence to your subconscious that you lack discipline, that you can't be trusted to follow through, that you're the type of person who chooses short-term pleasure over long-term success. These beliefs then influence future decisions, creating a downward spiral of increasingly self-defeating behavior. You become the person your habits have been training you to be. The attention destruction caused by weak habits might be the most devastating compound effect of all. In a world where deep focus is the ultimate competitive advantage, habits that fragment your attention are silently killing your potential. The constant task switching caused by checking notifications, emails, and social media doesn't just waste time. It literally rewires your brain for distraction and makes deep work progressively more difficult. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. If you check your phone 8 times during a 4-hour work block, you're ensuring that you never achieve the deep focus required for high-level thinking and problem-solving. Over time, your brain loses the capacity to sustain attention on challenging tasks, making you increasingly dependent on external stimulation and instant gratification. You become addicted to distraction, and deep work becomes almost impossible. Weak habits also compound through what psychologists call ego depletion. Every time you resist a temptation or make a difficult choice, you drain your willpower reserves. But weak habits force you to resist the same temptations over and over again, constantly depleting your mental energy and leaving you with less capacity for important decisions and creative work. The social compound effects are equally devastating. Other people unconsciously mirror the behaviors they observe, so your weak habits influence those around you to develop similar patterns. If you're constantly distracted by your phone, people you spend time with become more distracted. If you consistently choose comfort over challenge, you attract and encourage similar attitudes in others. Your weak habits don't just affect you, they radiate outward, affecting relationships, teams, even families. Weak habits compound financially through opportunity cost. Every hour spent on weak habits is an hour you could have spent developing valuable skills, building relationships, creating value, or improving your health. The money you don't earn, save, or invest because of weak habits compounds over time into massive differences in wealth and security. Health might be the most dramatic example of compound destruction. Poor eating habits, sedentary behavior, inadequate sleep, chronic stress, None of these kill you tomorrow, but they're systematically breaking down your body systems in ways that will dramatically impact your quality of life decades from now. The energy, vitality, and mental clarity you lose to weak habits compounds into a completely different life trajectory. The person you could have been at 60 becomes unreachable because of choices you made at 30. Understanding compound destruction changes how you evaluate daily choices. Instead of asking, "Will this hurt me today?" you start asking, "Is this moving me toward or away from who I want to become?" You begin to see that every choice is either building the life you want or building the life you don't want. There is no neutral ground. Every moment is a vote. The people who achieve extraordinary success understand this deeply. They know that success isn't about making perfect choices. It's about consistently making slightly better choices that compound over time. They understand that their current reality is the compound result of thousands of small decisions made over years, and their future reality will be determined by the small decisions they make starting today. Breaking free from compound destruction requires shifting from short-term thinking to long-term thinking. You need to develop the ability to feel the future consequences of present choices, even when those consequences aren't immediately visible. This requires training your brain to value delayed gratification over immediate pleasure and to see temporary discomfort as an investment in future success. It means learning to think in decades, not days. Chapter 9. Building an Unbreakable Mind. Mental toughness isn't about being emotionally numb or suppressing your feelings. Mental toughness is about developing the psychological resilience to consistently choose long-term success over short-term comfort, even when everything inside you screams for the easy path. It's about building a mind that automatically rejects weak habits because weakness has become incompatible with your core identity. Most people completely misunderstand mental toughness. They think it's about grinding through pain or forcing yourself to do things you hate. But true mental toughness is about developing such a strong sense of purpose and identity that difficult choices become easy choices. When you have real mental toughness, you don't have to force yourself to avoid weak habits. You naturally avoid them because they're inconsistent with who you are. Your current level of mental toughness was shaped by years of either avoiding discomfort or embracing it. Every time you chose the easy path when a challenging path was available, you trained your brain that discomfort is something to be avoided. Every time you quit when things got difficult, you reinforced neural pathways associated with giving up. Your brain learned that you're the type of person who chooses comfort over growth. But mental toughness isn't a fixed trait you're born with or without. It's a skill that can be developed through deliberate practice. Just like physical strength is built by progressively challenging your muscles, mental strength is built by progressively challenging your psychological comfort zone. Every time you choose discomfort over comfort, you're building mental muscle that makes future difficult choices easier. The foundation of mental toughness is reframing your relationship with discomfort. Most people see discomfort as a signal that something is wrong and needs to be avoided. Mentally tough people see discomfort as a signal that growth is happening and needs to be embraced. They understand that all meaningful progress requires moving through discomfort, and they've trained themselves to associate temporary discomfort with long-term success. This reframing process literally rewires your brain's response to challenging situations. Instead of activating fight or flight when you encounter difficulty, your brain begins activating growth and learning responses. Stress hormones get replaced with growth factors that actually enhance performance and resilience. Mental toughness training requires systematically exposing yourself to controlled discomfort to expand your tolerance for stress and challenge. This isn't about punishing yourself or creating unnecessary suffering. It's about strategically building your capacity to handle the inevitable difficulties that come with pursuing meaningful goals. The most effective training involves 3 types of challenges. Physical challenges that push your body beyond comfort. Cognitive challenges that force your brain to work harder than it wants to. And emotional challenges that require you to act despite fear or anxiety. Physical challenges are the most straightforward because they provide immediate feedback. Cold exposure, intense exercise, intermittent fasting, or other forms of controlled physical stress teach your brain that you can handle discomfort without breaking. Every time you stay in a cold shower longer than you want to, you're proving to your subconscious that you're stronger than your immediate impulses. Cognitive challenges involve forcing your brain to focus despite distractions, solve difficult problems despite frustration, or learn complex skills despite confusion. Reading challenging books, solving complex puzzles, learning new languages, or mastering difficult skills all build cognitive resilience. Your brain learns that temporary confusion and struggle are normal parts of growth rather than signals to quit. Emotional challenges require acting according to your values despite fear, anxiety, or social pressure. This might mean having difficult conversations, taking calculated risks, standing up for your beliefs, or pursuing goals that others don't understand. Every time you act courageously despite emotional discomfort, you strengthen emotional resilience and expand your capacity for future challenges. The key is progressive overload, the same principle used in physical training. Start with challenges that are difficult but manageable. Then gradually increase intensity as your mental capacity grows. If you try to take on challenges too far beyond your current capacity, you'll overwhelm your nervous system and potentially create trauma rather than growth. Mental toughness also requires developing distress tolerance, the ability to experience negative emotions without immediately trying to escape or numb them. Most weak habits are escape mechanisms people use to avoid uncomfortable emotions like boredom, anxiety, loneliness, or frustration. When you develop distress tolerance, you no longer need these escape mechanisms because you can sit with discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. Self-talk is critical because the way you interpret challenges determines how you respond to them. Mentally tough people have trained themselves to use empowering self-talk that reframes challenges as opportunities and setbacks as learning experiences. They've eliminated victim language and excuse-making from their internal dialogue. The stories you tell yourself about your capabilities have enormous power over your behavior. If you tell yourself you're naturally weak or undisciplined, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm this belief. If you tell yourself you're becoming stronger and more capable every day, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm that belief instead. The ultimate goal is developing what psychologists call anti-fragility, the ability to become stronger as a result of stress and challenges rather than being weakened by them. When you reach this level, setbacks become opportunities for growth. Criticism becomes fuel for improvement, and obstacles become stepping stones to greater success. Chapter 10. The complete 90-day neural rewiring system. Everything you've learned has been building toward this moment. The complete 90-day system that will eliminate your weak habits at the neurological level and replace them with automatic success behaviors. This isn't another temporary motivation program. This is a comprehensive protocol designed to rewire your brain based on cutting-edge neuroscience research and proven by thousands of people who have successfully transformed their lives. The 90-day time frame isn't random. Neuroscience research shows that it takes approximately 66 to 90 days of consistent practice to fully automate a new behavior and create lasting changes in brain structure. This is the minimum time required for new neural pathways to become stronger than old ones and for new behaviors to become truly automatic rather than consciously controlled. The system is divided into 3 30-day phases, each designed to build upon the previous phase and address different aspects of neural reprogramming. Phase 1 focuses on disrupting old patterns and creating initial momentum. Phase 2 focuses on building new neural pathways and strengthening your desired identity. Phase 3 focuses on automation and long-term sustainability. During Phase 1, your primary goal is pattern disruption. You're going to systematically identify and interrupt the automatic habit loops that have been controlling your behavior. This phase requires the most conscious effort because you're fighting against deeply ingrained patterns. But it becomes progressively easier as you weaken old neural pathways and begin building new ones. Start by selecting one primary weak habit to eliminate and one primary strong habit to install. Trying to change multiple habits simultaneously will overwhelm your nervous system and reduce your chances of success. Choose the weak habit having the biggest negative impact on your life and the strong habit that will have the biggest positive impact. Everything else can wait until these habits are fully automated. Document everything during Phase 1. Keep a detailed habit journal, tracking your triggers, emotions, circumstances, and responses every time you engage in either your weak habit or your strong habit. This data collection serves multiple purposes. It increases awareness of unconscious patterns, provides evidence of progress, and helps you identify specific environmental and emotional triggers that need addressing. Environmental modification is crucial during Phase 1. You need to systematically remove or modify every environmental cue that triggers your weak habit, while adding environmental cues that support your strong habit. This might mean rearranging your physical space, changing your routine, avoiding certain locations or people, or modifying your digital environment. The identity shift begins immediately in Phase 1. Start using language that reflects your desired identity rather than your current reality. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit," say, "I'm not someone who does this anymore." Instead of, "I'm working on being more disciplined," say, "I'm a disciplined person." Your subconscious mind pays attention to the language you use and begins adjusting your behavior to match your self-description. Let me share what this looked like for Jennifer. She wanted to eliminate her late-night snacking habit. Phase 1, she documented everything. Discovered her trigger was sitting on the couch after 8 p.m., while watching TV. The emotion was usually stress from the day. The reward wasn't hunger, it was comfort and numbing. She modified her environment, moved all snacks to the garage, put a water bottle and herbal tea on the coffee table instead, placed a journal next to the couch, changed her language from "I'm trying to stop snacking" to "I'm someone who honors my body's natural rhythms." First week was brutal. Her hand automatically reached for snacks that weren't there anymore. But she had the journal, the tea, the water. She wrote instead of ate. By week 3, the automatic reach was happening less. By week 4, sitting on the couch didn't trigger the snacking urge at all. Phase 2 is about building and strengthening new neural pathways through deliberate practice and repetition. By this point, you should have significantly weakened your old habit patterns and begun establishing new ones. Now, you're going to accelerate the formation of new pathways through strategic repetition and reward optimization. Stack your new habit with existing strong habits to leverage neural infrastructure that's already automated. If you want to build a meditation habit, attach it to your existing morning coffee routine. If you want to build a journaling habit, attach it to your existing bedtime routine. This technique, habit stacking, makes new behaviors easier to remember and implement because they're anchored to existing automated sequences. Increase the reward value of your new habit through celebration and tracking. Every time you successfully choose your strong habit over your weak habit, consciously acknowledge this success and feel proud of your progress. Your brain needs to associate your new behavior with positive emotions to prefer it over your old behavior. Implement accountability systems during phase 2. Share your goal with someone you respect. Join a community of people working on similar changes or work with a coach who will hold you accountable. External accountability provides additional motivation when internal motivation wavers and helps you maintain consistency during challenging periods. Marcus implemented this perfectly. He was building a morning exercise habit. Phase 2, he joined an online community of early morning exercisers, posted his daily completions, celebrated every workout with a protein smoothie he loved, and texted his accountability partner every morning after finishing. The community normalized the behavior. Seeing others do it made it feel achievable. The smoothie created immediate reward. The accountability text created external commitment. By day 60, the habit felt natural instead of forced. Phase 3 is about automation and long-term sustainability. By this point, your new habit should feel increasingly natural, and your old habit should feel increasingly foreign. Your goal is to make your new behavior so automatic that it requires no conscious effort or decision-making. Test your automation by introducing controlled stress and challenges. Habits that only work when conditions are perfect aren't truly automated. Your new behaviors need to be resilient enough to survive difficult days, stressful periods, and unexpected circumstances. Deliberately create challenging conditions to strengthen your new neural pathways under pressure. Plan for potential setbacks and develop recovery protocols. Even with perfect execution, you may occasionally slip back into old patterns, especially during periods of high stress or major life changes. Having a predetermined plan for quickly returning to your new habits prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversals. Expand to additional habits only after your primary habit is fully automated. Once your new behavior requires no conscious effort and feels completely natural, you can begin working on the next most important habit change. This sequential approach is exponentially more effective than trying to change everything at once. The 90-day challenge requires complete commitment and consistency. Missing even a single day during the formation period significantly extends the time required for automation and increases the likelihood of failure. Your brain needs constant reinforcement to build new pathways stronger than old ones. Success metrics should focus on consistency rather than perfection. You're not trying to perform your new habit perfectly. You're trying to perform it consistently enough to create automation. Track your consistency percentage and celebrate maintaining streaks rather than focusing on execution quality on any given day. The compound effects become visible around day 60, when your new neural pathways are strong enough to feel natural and your old pathways are weak enough to feel foreign. This is when transformation shifts from effortful to effortless, from conscious choice to automatic behavior. By day 90, your new habit should feel like an essential part of who you are rather than something you have to remember to do. It should feel more uncomfortable to skip the habit than to do it. That's when you know the neural rewiring is complete. Chapter 11. Advanced Techniques for Accelerated Transformation. You now understand the fundamentals of neural reprogramming. But if you want to accelerate your transformation beyond what most people achieve, you need to implement advanced techniques that elite performers use to rewire their brains faster and more, completely. The first advanced technique is neural priming, strategically preparing your brain for new habit formation before you even attempt the behavior. Your brain's neuroplasticity isn't constant throughout the day. It fluctuates based on your mental state, hormone levels, and recent activities. By understanding these fluctuations, you can time your habit practice during periods of maximum brain adaptability. Research shows that neuroplasticity is highest immediately after physical exercise, during the first hour after waking, and during periods of novel learning. Your brain releases brain-derived neurotrophic factor during these times, which acts like fertilizer for new neural pathway formation. Elite habit builders schedule their most important habit practice during these windows of enhanced neuroplasticity. Think about it. Instead of trying to meditate at random times throughout the day, you meditate immediately after your morning workout, when your brain is primed for new pathway formation. The habit automates faster because you're working with your brain's natural rhythms instead of against them. The second technique is sensory stacking, engaging multiple senses during habit practice to create stronger and more durable neural pathways. Most people only engage one or two senses when building habits. But your brain forms exponentially stronger memories and automated behaviors when multiple sensory channels are activated simultaneously. For example, if you're building a writing habit, don't just write in random locations with random conditions. Write in the same spot, with the same background music, with the same beverage, even with the same scent in the air. This creates a multi-sensory neural network that makes the habit much easier to trigger and much more resistant to extinction. Your brain has multiple pathways to access the same behavior pattern. Emotional amplification is perhaps the most powerful technique available. Emotions aren't just feelings. They're neural chemicals that determine how strongly memories are encoded and how quickly behaviors become automatic. Habits formed during states of intense emotion become automated much faster than habits formed in neutral emotional states. This means you need to intentionally create emotional intensity around your new habits. Connect your habit to your deepest values and most important life goals. Visualize the long-term consequences of success and failure with vivid emotional detail. Create rituals and celebrations that generate positive emotions when you complete your habit. Your brain prioritizes behaviors that are emotionally significant. Sarah used this brilliantly. She was building a daily reading habit, but struggling with consistency. Then she shifted her approach. She created a reading ritual where she lit a specific candle, made her favorite tea, sat in a designated chair, and before reading, spent 2 minutes visualizing the person she was becoming through learning. She connected the act of reading to her identity as a lifelong learner, to her goals of becoming wiser and more capable, to her desire to be someone her future children would admire. The emotional intensity made the habit stick exponentially faster. The third technique is cognitive load manipulation. Your brain's ability to form new habits is inversely related to the amount of mental processing it's doing simultaneously. When cognitive load is high, your brain defaults to existing automated patterns. When cognitive load is low, your brain is more open to forming new patterns. This is why it's easier to build new habits early in the morning when your mental energy is fresh rather than late at night when your brain is exhausted. It's also why simplifying your environment and reducing decision fatigue during habit formation periods dramatically improves success rates. Elite performers systematically reduce cognitive load during habit formation periods to maximize neuroplasticity. Temporal clustering is an advanced technique that involves practicing your new habit multiple times in short bursts, rather than once for a longer duration. Instead of doing one 30-minute workout, you might do 3 10-minute movement sessions spread throughout the day. This creates more opportunities for neural reinforcement and faster pathway development. The spacing effect shows that distributed practice is more effective than massed practice for creating lasting neural changes. Your brain needs time to consolidate new patterns between practice sessions, and multiple shorter sessions provide more consolidation opportunities than single longer sessions. Mirror neuron activation involves practicing your habit while observing others who have already mastered similar behaviors. Mirror neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you observe others performing the same action. This neural mirroring accelerates learning and habit formation by activating the neural pathways associated with the behavior, even when you're not actively practicing. Watch videos of people who have mastered the habits you want to develop. Spend time with people who naturally embody the behaviors you're trying to automate. Your mirror neurons will fire and strengthen the neural pathways associated with these behaviors, making them easier to execute when you practice them yourself. The final advanced technique is neural pathway competition, deliberately practicing competing behaviors to strengthen your desired neural pathway through contrast. Instead of just practicing your new habit, you also practice consciously choosing your new habit over your old habit in simulated scenarios. For example, if you're eliminating a phone-checking habit, practice pulling out your phone and then deliberately choosing to put it away without checking it. This creates a stronger neural pathway for impulse control because your brain is actively choosing the new behavior over the old one, rather than just avoiding the trigger situation entirely. These advanced techniques require more sophistication and planning than basic habit formation strategies. But they can reduce the time required for automation from 90 days to as little as 30 days for simpler habits. They're particularly valuable for people who need to make rapid changes due to career demands, health requirements, or major life transitions. The key to implementing advanced techniques is systematic experimentation. Try different combinations to find what works best for your brain and lifestyle. Track your progress carefully and adjust your approach based on results rather than assumptions. Elite performance requires elite strategies, and these techniques will put you in the top tier of people who successfully transform their habits. Chapter 12. Navigating the Mental Warfare of Change. Your brain will fight against your attempts to eliminate weak habits with the intensity of a cornered animal fighting for survival. This resistance isn't a character flaw or lack of motivation. It's a predictable neurobiological response that you can anticipate, understand, and systematically overcome. The people who successfully transform their habits aren't the ones who experience less resistance. They're the ones who have developed protocols for navigating resistance when it inevitably appears. Your brain's resistance to change serves an evolutionary purpose. It protected your ancestors from dangerous behaviors that could threaten survival. In a world where most changes were potentially life-threatening, resistance to change was a valuable survival mechanism. But in today's world, this same mechanism prevents you from making beneficial changes that could dramatically improve your life. The resistance will manifest in multiple forms, and you need to be prepared for all of them. Emotional resistance appears as anxiety, fear, frustration, or overwhelming feelings when you try to practice new habits. Cognitive resistance appears as rationalization, excuse-making, and mental stories that justify returning to old patterns. Physical resistance appears as fatigue, restlessness, or physical discomfort when engaging in new behaviors. The most dangerous form of resistance is what I call the extinction burst. This is a temporary but intense increase in your old habit, urges that occurs when your brain realizes its existing programs are being threatened. Just like a light bulb burns brightest right before it burns out, your weak habits will seem more compelling than ever during the period when they're actually dying. Most people interpret the extinction burst as evidence that their new approach isn't working, so they give up right before their breakthrough. They don't realize that intense cravings and urges are actually positive signs indicating old neural pathways are being successfully disrupted. The extinction burst typically occurs between days 10 and 30 of habit change. Knowing it's coming allows you to prepare for it instead of being blindsided. The first resistance protocol is cognitive reframing. When resistance appears, instead of fighting against it or trying to suppress it, you reframe it as evidence of progress. Resistance means your brain recognizes that change is happening and is activating its defense mechanisms. The stronger the resistance, the more significant the change you're creating. Develop specific phrases you'll use when resistance appears. This discomfort means I'm growing. This resistance proves I'm breaking through old patterns. My brain is fighting change because real change is actually happening. These reframes shift your relationship with resistance from enemy to ally. The second protocol is the 10-minute rule. When you feel overwhelming resistance to your new habit, commit to doing it for just 10 minutes. This reduces the psychological barrier by making the commitment feel manageable, and it often generates enough momentum to continue beyond the minimum time. Your brain's resistance is usually strongest at the moment of initiation, not during the activity itself. Most resistance is anticipatory. It's worse in your imagination than in reality. Once you start the behavior, resistance often diminishes significantly. The 10-minute rule exploits this by getting you past the initiation barrier where most resistance occurs. The third protocol is environmental manipulation during resistance periods. When you're experiencing strong urges for your old habit, immediately change your physical environment. Go to a different room, leave your current location, or engage in a completely different activity. This disrupts the environmental cues, triggering the urges, and gives your conscious mind time to regain control. The urge surfing technique treats resistance like a wave that builds up, peaks, and then naturally subsides. Instead of fighting the urge or immediately giving in to it, you observe it with detached curiosity. Notice how the urge feels in your body, how it changes over time, and how it eventually passes without any action on your part. Research shows that most urges last between 3 and 15 minutes if you don't act on them. By learning to surf these urges rather than being knocked over by them, you prove to your brain that you can experience the urge without being controlled by it. This gradually weakens the power of the urge and strengthens your sense of self-control. The accountability activation protocol involves immediately contacting your accountability partner or support system when resistance becomes overwhelming. This external support provides perspective, encouragement, and often practical strategies for working through the difficult moment. The simple act of verbalizing your struggle to another person often reduces its emotional intensity. The pre-commitment strategy involves making decisions about how you'll handle resistance before the resistance appears. When your willpower is strong and your thinking is clear, you decide exactly what you'll do when resistance shows up. This removes decision-making from moments when your judgment is compromised by emotional intensity. Write down specific action steps you'll take when you feel like giving up. Create if-then plans that automatically trigger helpful responses. If I feel like checking social media, then I will do 20 push-ups instead. These predetermined responses bypass the need for willpower in the moment because the decision has already been made. The final resistance protocol is strategic retreat and re-engagement. Sometimes resistance is so overwhelming that pushing through would create trauma or burnout rather than progress. In these cases, it's better to strategically retreat, regroup, and re-engage when you're in a better state. This isn't the same as quitting or giving up. Strategic retreat involves taking a planned break to restore your mental resources, adjusting your approach based on what you've learned, and then re-engaging with a modified strategy. Elite performers know when to push through resistance and when to step back and recalibrate. Remember that resistance is temporary, but the neural changes you're creating are permanent. Every time you successfully navigate resistance without reverting to old patterns, you strengthen your new neural pathways and weaken old ones. Resistance doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're succeeding so effectively that your brain feels threatened by the change. Chapter 13: The Social Blueprint for Accelerated Transformation. Your social environment is the most powerful force shaping your habits, yet most people completely ignore its impact when trying to create change. The people you spend time with, the conversations you have, and the social contexts you participate in are constantly programming your brain for either excellence or mediocrity. If you want to eliminate weak habits permanently, you must strategically optimize your social environment to support your transformation. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures, and your brain is wired to mirror the behaviors, attitudes, and habits of the people around you. This phenomenon, social contagion, happens automatically below your conscious awareness. When you spend time with people who have certain habits, your brain begins adopting similar neural patterns through mirror neuron activation and social learning mechanisms. Research reveals something startling. You're 57% more likely to become overweight if your close friends are overweight, 61% more likely to develop smoking habits if your social circle smokes, and 34% more likely to experience sustained happiness if your friends are happy. Your habits don't exist in isolation. They're constantly influenced by the social ecosystem you participate in. This means that trying to change your habits while maintaining the same social environment is like trying to swim upstream against a powerful current. Your social environment creates a gravitational pull toward certain behaviors, and if that pull opposes your desired changes, you'll be fighting an exhausting battle that depletes your willpower and ultimately leads to failure. The first step in social environment optimization is conducting a social audit. List the people you spend the most time with and honestly evaluate whether each relationship supports or undermines your desired transformation. Consider not just their obvious habits, but their attitudes toward growth, discipline, excellence, and personal responsibility. Some relationships will clearly support your goals. Others will clearly undermine them. Many will be neutral or mixed. The relationships that clearly undermine your goals require immediate attention because they're actively sabotaging your transformation, even if the people involved have good intentions. You don't necessarily need to end relationships with people who have weak habits, but you do need to modify how you interact with them. This might mean spending less time together, avoiding certain activities or contexts where weak habits are encouraged, or being more intentional about the topics you discuss and the activities you engage in together. The second step is strategically seeking out people who already embody the habits and identity you want to develop. If you want to become someone who prioritizes learning, spend time with people who are passionate about growth and knowledge. If you want to become someone who values health, surround yourself with people who treat their bodies with respect. These relationships provide multiple benefits for habit formation. They normalize the behaviors you want to adopt, making them seem natural and achievable rather than difficult or unusual. They provide social proof that your desired changes are possible and worthwhile. They offer practical knowledge and strategies from people who have already succeeded. They create accountability and encouragement during challenging periods. Online communities can be just as powerful as in-person relationships for habit formation, especially if you can't find local people who share your goals. Join forums, social media groups, or online programs focused on the specific changes you want to make. participate actively rather than just observing, and focus on giving value to others rather than just seeking help for yourself. The third step is creating accountability partnerships with people who are also working on habit change. Accountability partnerships work because they leverage your brain's social bonding mechanisms and desire to maintain a positive reputation. When you know someone else is counting on you and monitoring your progress, you're dramatically more likely to follow through on your commitments. Effective accountability partnerships require structure and mutual commitment. Set regular check-in schedules, establish clear metrics for tracking progress, and create consequences for both success and failure. The consequences don't need to be severe, but they need to be meaningful enough to influence your behavior. Share your daily progress, discuss challenges and obstacles, celebrate successes together, and problem-solve difficulties as a team. The key is creating genuine investment in each other's success rather than just superficial progress reporting. Let me tell you about Rachel and Tom. They both wanted to build morning routines. Rachel wanted to meditate. Tom wanted to write. They became accountability partners, texting each other every morning after completing their habits. Just a simple, done check mark message. But knowing someone was waiting for that message changed everything. On days when Rachel didn't feel like meditating, she'd think about Tom waiting for her check-in. The social commitment overpowered the personal resistance. 6 months later, both habits were fully automated, but they still sent the morning messages because the connection had become meaningful. The fourth step is environmental anchoring. Consistently practicing your new habits in social contexts that support and reinforce them. Instead of trying to build new habits in isolation, practice them around people who already have similar habits or who are working toward similar goals. For example, if you're building a reading habit, do your reading in libraries, coffee shops, or bookstores where reading is normal and expected. If you're building an exercise habit, work out in gyms or join fitness classes where exercise is the social norm. The social context reinforces your new identity and makes the behavior feel more natural. The fifth step is conversation optimization. The conversations you have daily are programming your brain for either growth or stagnation. Conversations focused on complaints, gossip, limitations, and problems train your brain for negative thinking patterns. Conversations focused on goals, learning, possibilities, and solutions train your brain for positive thinking patterns. Start steering your conversations toward topics that support your desired identity. Ask people about their goals and growth rather than their problems and complaints. Share your own learning and progress rather than your struggles and frustrations. The language you use and the topics you focus on literally rewire your brain over time. Social modeling is perhaps the most powerful social environment tool. Identify specific people who have already mastered the habits you want to develop and study their behaviors, thinking patterns, and decision-making processes. You're not trying to copy them exactly, but rather to understand the mental models and behavioral patterns that enable their success. Spend time with these people if possible, or study them through interviews, podcasts, books, or other content they've created. Pay attention to how they think about challenges, how they structure their days, what they prioritize, and how they talk about their habits. Your brain will unconsciously absorb these patterns and begin implementing them in your own life. The final step is creating social consequences and rewards for your habit change. Make your goals public in appropriate contexts. Join challenges or competitions related to your habits, and create social celebrations for your progress. Your brain responds powerfully to social recognition and approval, so leveraging these mechanisms accelerates habit formation. Remember that social environment optimization isn't about manipulation or using people. It's about creating mutually beneficial relationships that support everyone's growth and success. The best social environments are ones where everyone is committed to helping each other become better versions of themselves. Chapter 14. Sustaining your transformation. Forever, successfully eliminating weak habits and building strong ones is just the beginning of your transformation journey. The real challenge is maintaining these changes over the long term and continuing to evolve your identity as your life circumstances change. Most people who successfully create initial change fail to maintain it because they don't understand the ongoing maintenance requirements for sustained transformation. Your brain never stops changing. The neuroplasticity continues throughout your entire life, which means your habits are never completely fixed or permanent. This is both an opportunity and a challenge. It means you can continue improving and adapting throughout your life, but it also means you must actively maintain your positive changes or risk sliding back into old patterns. The maintenance phase begins approximately 90 days after you start implementing new habits, when the behaviors have become largely automatic, but haven't yet become deeply ingrained parts of your identity. This is a critical period because many people become overconfident in their progress and reduce their vigilance just when continued attention is most important. The first maintenance principle is progressive overload for habits. Just like muscles need progressively greater challenges to continue growing stronger, your habits need progressively greater challenges to continue developing. Once a habit becomes easy and automatic, you need to add complexity, increase the frequency, or raise the standards to prevent stagnation. For example, if your daily movement habit has become automatic, you might challenge yourself with more intense workouts, increase your duration, or add skill-based training to your practice. The goal isn't to make habits harder for the sake of difficulty, but to ensure they continue serving your growth and development rather than becoming mindless routines. The second principle is habit ecosystem thinking. Your habits exist as an interconnected ecosystem where each habit influences and supports the others. As you add new habits and refine existing ones, you need to consider how they fit together as a cohesive system rather than treating them as isolated behaviors. Strong habit ecosystems have natural synergies where each habit makes the others easier and more rewarding. Exercise habits support learning habits by improving brain function. Learning habits support productivity habits by increasing knowledge and skills. Productivity habits support health habits by creating time and resources for self-care. Design your habits to reinforce each other rather than competing for your limited time and energy. The third principle is seasonal adaptation. Your life circumstances will change over time due to career transitions, relationship changes, health challenges, family obligations, and other life events. Your habits need to be flexible enough to adapt to these changes while maintaining their essential function and identity reinforcement. This requires developing what I call habit modularity. the ability to modify specific behaviors while maintaining the underlying identity and purpose. If you're someone who prioritizes learning, but your life circumstances change dramatically, you might need to shift from reading books to listening to podcasts, or from taking courses to having learning conversations with mentors. The form changes, but the identity remains. The fourth principle is identity evolution. Your identity isn't static. It should continue evolving as you grow and develop new capabilities. The person you become through eliminating weak habits is not the final version of yourself. It's simply the next version. Successful long-term transformation requires continuously expanding your identity to encompass new levels of capability and contribution. This means periodically reassessing your habits to ensure they're still serving your highest potential rather than just maintaining your current level. Ask yourself, what would the next level version of myself do differently? What new habits would serve my continued evolution? What existing habits need to be upgraded or refined? The fifth principle is failure resilience. No matter how strong your habits become, you will occasionally fail to maintain them due to stress, illness, travel, or unexpected life events. The key to long-term success isn't preventing all failures. It's developing rapid recovery protocols that get you back on track quickly. Create specific plans for common failure scenarios. What will you do if you get sick and can't maintain your exercise habit? How will you adapt your learning habit when traveling? How will you maintain your productivity habits during stressful periods? Having predetermined recovery plans prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent reversals. The rapid recovery protocol involves 3 steps. Acknowledge the setback without self-judgment, identify the specific circumstances that led to the failure, and immediately return to your habit routine at the next available opportunity. The length of the setback matters far less than the speed of your return to consistency. The sixth principle is continuous education and optimization. Stay connected to new research and strategies related to habit formation and personal development. Your understanding of how to create and maintain positive changes should continue deepening over time. What works at the beginning of your journey may not be optimal as you develop greater sophistication and capability. Join communities of people who are also committed to long-term growth. Share your experiences, learn from others, and stay inspired by people who are ahead of you on the journey. Continuous learning prevents complacency and ensures your approach continues evolving with your needs. The seventh principle is teaching and mentoring. One of the most effective ways to cement your own transformation is to help others who are earlier in their journey. Teaching requires you to articulate and clarify your understanding, which deepens your own knowledge. Mentoring creates accountability and purpose that strengthens your commitment to maintaining your own positive changes. Look for opportunities to share your experience and knowledge with others who are struggling with similar challenges. This might involve formal mentoring, relationships, creating content that helps others, or simply being more open about your journey with friends and family who could benefit from your insights. The final principle is celebration and reflection. Regularly acknowledge and celebrate your progress, both the major milestones and the daily consistencies. Your brain needs positive reinforcement to maintain motivation for continued growth. Create rituals for recognizing your achievements and reflecting on how far you've come. Keep a long-term progress journal that tracks not just your habit consistency, but the broader life changes that have resulted from your transformation. Document improvements in your energy, relationships, career, health, and overall life satisfaction. This creates a powerful motivation source during challenging periods and reminds you why the effort is worthwhile. Remember that maintenance isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. The goal isn't to never fail or struggle, but to keep growing and improving over time. Every day you maintain your positive habits is a day you're becoming a stronger, more capable version of yourself. The compound effects of this consistency will create results that far exceed what you can currently imagine. Chapter 15. Your new life begins right now. Everything you've learned has led to this moment. You now possess the knowledge, strategies, and systems necessary to eliminate weak habits from your life forever and replace them with automatic success behaviors. But knowledge without action is worthless. All the strategies in the world won't help you if you don't implement them starting right now. The difference between people who transform their lives and people who stay trapped in mediocrity isn't intelligence, talent, or circumstances. It's the willingness to take immediate action on what they know to be true. Most people will read this information, agree that it's valuable, and then continue living exactly as they did before. They'll wait for the perfect moment, the right circumstances, or a burst of motivation that never comes. But you're not most people. You're here because something inside you knows you're capable of more than you're currently experiencing. You're here because you're tired of being controlled by unconscious patterns that keep you small and average. You're here because you're ready to take control of your mind and start living at the level of your true potential. Your brain is neuroplastic, constantly changing based on your thoughts, behaviors, and experiences. Every moment you delay implementing these strategies is a moment your brain is strengthening the existing neural pathways that have kept you trapped. Every moment you wait is a moment you're voting for the old version of yourself rather than the new version you want to become. The harsh reality is that there will never be a perfect time to start. There will always be stress, distractions, obligations, and excuses available if you're looking for them. The people who succeed aren't the ones who wait for ideal conditions. They're the ones who start with imperfect conditions and improve their situation through action. Your transformation begins with a single decision. The decision to stop being a victim of your own mind and start being the architect of your thoughts and behaviors. This decision must be absolute and non-negotiable. You cannot partially commit to rewiring your brain. You cannot casually implement these strategies when you feel like it. Transformation requires total commitment to becoming someone different than you are today. Start with one habit. Choose the weak habit having the biggest negative impact on your life, or the strong habit that would have the biggest positive impact. Apply everything you've learned. Identify the underlying identity that supports this habit. Design your environment to make success inevitable. Use the neural pathway replacement system. Implement accountability mechanisms, and commit to 90 days of consistent practice. Document everything. Keep a detailed record of your triggers, emotions, successes, and challenges. This data will become invaluable as you refine your approach and expand to additional habits. Your transformation story will inspire others and remind you of your own capability during challenging moments. Understand that resistance is inevitable and prepare for it. Your brain will fight against these changes with everything it has. You will experience urges, rationalizations, emotional intensity, and moments when giving up feels like the only rational choice. These experiences aren't signs of failure. They're signs that your transformation is working so effectively that your brain feels threatened. Connect with others who are on similar journeys. Join communities, find accountability partners, and surround yourself with people who support your growth rather than your comfort. Your social environment will either accelerate your transformation or sabotage it. Choose people who inspire you to become better rather than people who enable you to stay the same. Celebrate every victory, no matter how small it seems. Each time you choose your new habit over your old one, you're literally rewiring your brain and becoming a different person. These moments deserve recognition because they're the building blocks of your new identity. Remember that this transformation extends far beyond just changing a few behaviors. You're learning to take control of your own mind, which is the most powerful skill you can develop. Once you master the ability to consciously direct your thoughts and behaviors rather than being controlled by unconscious programming, there is no limit to what you can achieve. The compound effects of this transformation will touch every area of your life. Your relationships will deepen because you'll be more present and intentional. Your career will accelerate because you'll have the focus and discipline to do what others won't. Your health will flourish because you'll make choices based on long-term well-being rather than short-term comfort. Your sense of fulfillment will grow because you'll be living in alignment with your values rather than being controlled by impulses. But these benefits only come to people who take action. Reading about neuroplasticity doesn't rewire your brain. Understanding habit loops doesn't eliminate weak habits. Knowing about identity-based change doesn't transform your identity. Only consistent, deliberate action creates the neural changes that lead to permanent transformation. The time for preparation is over. The time for research is over. The time for waiting is over. The time for action is now. Your weak habits have controlled you for long enough. Your unconscious patterns have limited you for long enough. Your old identity has defined you for long enough. Starting right now, you have two choices. You can continue living as you have been, controlled by patterns you didn't consciously choose, limited by beliefs you didn't consciously adopt, trapped by habits that serve your past rather than your future. Or you can take control of your mind, eliminate the weak habits that have been holding you back, and become the person you know you're capable of being. The choice is yours. But understand that not choosing is also a choice. Not taking action is voting for your current reality to continue unchanged. Waiting for tomorrow is the same as choosing never, because tomorrow you'll have the same choice again. And people who don't act today rarely act tomorrow. Your new life is waiting for you on the other side of your comfort zone. Your potential is waiting to be unleashed through disciplined action. Your dreams are waiting to become reality through consistent implementation of these strategies. But they will only wait so long. The moment you decide to implement these strategies is the moment your transformation begins. The moment you choose action over hesitation is the moment you cross the point of no return. The moment you commit to 90 days of rewiring your brain is the moment you start becoming who you were always meant to be. Your weak habits have stolen enough of your life. Your unconscious patterns have wasted enough of your potential. Your old identity has limited you long enough. Today is the day you take back control. Today is the day you start educating your mind to kill weak habits forever. Today is the day your new life begins. The question is, will you start today, or will you be the same person a year from now, still wishing you had started today? The choice is yours. Your transformation is waiting. Your new identity is calling. Your best life is possible. But it all begins with one decision. The decision to start right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect, right now. Your mind is ready. Your brain is waiting. Your future self is depending on you. Educate your mind. Kill your weak habits. Transform your life. Starting now.